Now over the years I've always made a point to check out Steam Next Fest's VR demos because
you never know what you're going to get.
But this year is probably the worst I've ever known it. And if any developers are watching, please, I'm begging you guys, actually play some VR games before and during making one. This year's lineup was like going back to 2018, and aside from a couple of shiny gold nuggets, it was overall pretty disappointing. With that out of the way, let's get going with this pretty negative video, and I'll be dropping some review scores because it's an easy way to communicate how I felt. First up, we have Project Nova. This one looked okay, and it felt okay to play, but the demo stopped literally as anything noteworthy was about to happen. As gameplay goes, you go around cutting open different panels, replacing batteries and circuits, and then welding the panels back together. There was one big glimmer of hope, and that was going out into space, because who doesn't want to throw themselves out into space in VR? But this game quickly stops any fear of flying out into space before it becomes fun, and it makes you restart the game very quickly. 3 out of 10. Next up, we have Mega Race Quantum Rush, which looks like so many other bad VR kart races we've had before, and none of them for me have been better than Dash Dash Racing, which actually had a decent campaign and a challenge, and it included drift boosting, but I still wanted to give this one a fair chance, but to be honest I wish I hadn't. It's far too easy, you can't drift, you can't boost, and there's no weapons. 1 out of 10. Next up we have Echoes of the Sun, but I couldn't get the game to start despite trying for 10 minutes, and all I experienced was having this star or a sun floating orb in front of me. 1 out of 10. Now we have Golden Kingdom, which was easily the most graphically pleasing out of every single game on this list, and in general it's very beautiful, but there is zero gameplay. You're just a pair of hands wandering around in a desert, and it's an absolute snooze fest. As I mentioned a minute ago, it drops you in the desert and you walk to the only thing that's in the distance that actually matters, and that's a castle. As a reward for walking nearly 10 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating, I think it did take around 10 minutes to get anywhere, I was welcomed by a table with 2 axes. That's it. There is absolutely nothing to do in this game, and it feels like I'm being trolled. So to get revenge, I tricked the game's tracking and got into the castle, and it's just a broken bit of asset. Complete waste of time. Please f*** off. 1 out of 10. Next we have Phantom of Asylum, a VR horror, and the name is pretty spot on. When you spawn, you can't move and get stuck in the environment, and then randomly a game called Sultan of Egypt started blaring music at me and speaking a language I didn't understand.
What is happening?
Then I met a man and a kid around a fire who were talking about the Bible or something, so I grabbed a jar and then I was back in the cell in the VR horror game, which I couldn't get out of. 1 out of 10. Next we have Orc Hunter, Elven Archers. It looked nice, but the bow felt crap, and within 10 minutes ended up just being a goblin wave shooter. 2 out of 10. Then I went on to play Hidden Breed, which actually felt pretty good for a couple of minutes thanks to the really cool frisbees. But again, this ended up being a wave-based game, so I played for as long as I could, which was around 5 minutes, till I noped out. 2 out of 10. Next we have a game called Wet. I didn't understand what it wanted me to do, and you couldn't move the world up or down or zoom in and out. You could only move forwards and backwards, and it literally just seemed like I was growing the world and then taking it away again. 1 out of 10. Now I do love me a shooter like Resogun or Stardust, which was actually really cool to play in VR and on PS Vita. So Stratogun caught my eye and it kept my attention for a while. It's very much like Stardust actually, but it's visually much more boring. The power-ups also don't really seem to make a difference, and the presentation was pretty cool at first in VR, but overall I just got bored in the end, which was a real shame. 3 out of 10. Now this next one was pretty cool, and I'm not a big fan of the current majority of Keep Fit VR games unless they just feel cool to play, like the long forgotten Sprint Vector or Thrill of the Fight. So Sportvida Cyberdash had me playing for quite some time. It features roller skating like movements using your arms, and that means you can also stop now and again and keep momentum. It has 3 different modes, which see your hands either turn into boxing gloves or swords, or you actually end up headbutting the targets. And overall it looks and sounds pretty great. Definitely one I will try again and keep my eye on to see where it goes, but I would rather this be on Quest so I can get to play it in a larger play space because it is very physical. 6 out of 10. Now the good news is we're actually on a roll here because Wiped Clean had me playing for much longer than I expected. You play an undercover cop posing as a cleanup guy. You have to go to murder houses and spray away all the blood, pick up any and all evidence of any murders, remove the bodies, and use a UV light to find footprints and handprints and remove them too. There was also a deeper story involved, which was pretty cool, which had me searching and getting clues. Overall, I had a really good time with this, and I would rather play this than Power Wash Simulator. If they actually work on this game properly, and especially make it a multiplayer, this could be a great game. 7 out of 10. A few months back, I showed a game that was basically getting over it for VR, and I absolutely loved it. and I think these style of games work really well in virtual reality. So here's Journey Up. You play a unicycle robot and you basically have to climb up tons of obstacles, and it's pretty difficult, but it also felt pretty rewarding. 5 out of 10. Next we have Punch Plant, which looked nice and felt good to play, but once again it was a wave-based game and I got extremely bored very quickly. 2 out of 10. Then we have The Concept, which I can only describe as a Boneworks from Wish, and there was very little to do, but it did look nice and the physics were good. 3 out of 10. And last but by no means least, we have Evacuation Zone Tampre, which means very little to me, but I actually thought it looked pretty cool. The voice work is strange, the only gun in the game felt pretty good, and I was ready to play more, but the game gimped out on me and left me spinning around on the spot, so I'm going to give this 3 out of 10. Well, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you to everyone who leaves a like and subscribes, and I'll see you on the next one.